For decades, Florida has attracted retirees because of its endless beaches, fantastic golf, and its 0% state income tax. But the Florida retirement dream is changing quickly, with many retirees spending on things that they didn't think about even 4 or 5 years ago when they moved there. So today I'm going to cover off the 5 big reasons why you might want to postpone that move to Florida, at least consider it. And I'm also going to give you other options, which I personally am considering as well. A good friend of mine, let's call him Dave, moved from here in New York down to Sarasota, Florida a few years ago to pursue his retirement dream. And Dave had done his homework. He figured out his cost of living to the dollar, in fact. He knew what his insurance rates were going to be, what his HOA was going to be. He had talked to his daughter about moving down to Florida because she was working remotely and she could live anywhere. He even figured out what his new income stream would look like with a zero state tax environment. But despite all of that, when he got down there a year into his move, his insurance went up to $8,000 per year, and his HOA assessed an additional $5,000 in special assessments for hurricane protection for the community. And his daughter, well, she didn't follow because her employer required employees to come back into the office, as many of them are now, and so working remotely wasn't really possible for her anymore, or her kids, his grandkids. And when we chatted last month, he had concern in his voice. He was spending $15,000 more per year than he had originally budgeted, and he was upset that he was now away from his family where he was close to them before. But Dave's story isn't unique. I've heard several of these stories, both from people I've talked to and people who've written in to the channel about some of the challenges that they're facing. What's happening in Florida isn't anecdotal. The data clearly shows that the financial impact on people living in Florida has gone way up, and some of the lifestyle elements that people move to Florida for are starting to look bad, actually. Very bad, in fact. Recent study shows that Florida leads the nation in home insurance increases from 30 to 150% in just a year or two in many cases, depending on where you live. Climate data shows that the infamous 100 by 100 is real, and it's actually becoming more consistent. That's 100 degrees for 100 days or longer in a calendar year. And the Florida population boomed during the pandemic with remote workers moving south. Now employers are requiring their employees to come back into the office. And last year, there was a 12% increase in outbound moves out of Florida. These changes create the perfect storm for what an actual retirement in Florida might look like versus what it looked like 5 years ago. So let's break down the 5 big issues that every potential Florida retiree must consider before moving down to the Sunshine State. Gang, there's been a lot of noise about Medicare brokers that haven't been working on behalf of their clients' best interests lately, and even an insurance company or two out there as well. Note that we limited our partners on this channel to 2 or 3 high-quality, well-researched firms, and one of those partners is Chapter Medicare. Chapter has access to over 24,000 plans, and they're totally free to you. So if you have questions about Medicare, or you just want a second opinion if you're already receiving Medicare, give them a call at 440-703-1224 to see if they can help you. I'll put the number in the description below so that you don't need to stop the video. Now back to the video. First, FEMA has rezoned the state and included 400,000 homes that were previously considered safe, not so safe. They're now in a higher risk for flood. The shift has created a requirement from insurance companies for people in those flood zones to buy flood insurance. This adds $2,000 to $5,000 per year or more on to insurance costs for homeowners in these areas. And what's even more frustrating is even if you don't believe that you personally are at risk for flooding, insurance companies require you to have flood insurance in these areas, or you can't have insurance through the company. And to make matters worse, if you have a mortgage, your mortgage company is requiring flood insurance as well. So you have to go with flood insurance or self-insure, which really isn't a great idea, particularly because you're not just giving up flood insurance, you're giving up insurance for everything if you self-insure. And the insurance market in Florida continues to evolve, with a dozen companies adjusting how they do business in Florida or pulling out altogether, creating an opportunity, I suppose, for other insurance providers to charge more, even if they don't necessarily need to charge more to cover those that need the homeowner's insurance. And many retirees are opting for the state-run Citizens Property Insurance, which itself seems to be under pressure because of a lot of the claims that have been happening. And there's a big risk that premiums are going to go up or coverage may become limited with this option. The third option really creates issues around the family dynamic. 2020 created an opportunity for families to come together, to live together, and to move to more beautiful places together because everybody was working remotely, and that continued on for several years. But now the push to move back to the office is extremely apparent, and you're seeing it everywhere from big banks to little companies that are traditionally remote because they feel like the ability to work together is impacted, the ability for outcomes is impacted if employees aren't working together. And this return to office phenomenon, which meant that retirees were moving down to Florida to be with family that was already there and enjoying the sunshine, now find themselves suddenly alone because those same people have had to go back up to New York, Chicago, California, wherever they were from before, in order to be in the office. And this creates both emotional strain and practical limitations because aside from not having people around that you want to be near, you don't have people around to help you as a retiree. And a lot of that help comes from family members usually. The fourth issue is just the value of property in Florida itself and the long-term financial stability that comes from home ownership. Historically, if you have owned a home, it has moved up in value. Maybe not every year, maybe even not every couple of years, but over the long run, it has continued to tick up over the years and decades ahead of you. Today, we're seeing just the opposite in Florida. There's a significant price shift happening in Florida, and properties that once sold for 100% are now being sold for 80% of the purchase price or less. And to be fair, it's not just in Florida. Nationwide, the average number of homes that were sold went from 6 million down to 4 million last year. So that's a pretty significant decrease, but a lot of that is in places like Florida. So if your retirement plan involves selling your Florida residence to fund long-term care or other needs as you get older, the flattening price curve or the declining price curve might cause some pretty significant issues for you in the future. The fifth issue is everyday life issues that are there now that didn't exist 5 or 10 years ago. For example, utility bills can be $500 per month or more. The cost of food is up 20% on the coasts anyway compared to inland. Access to health insurance is more problematic because there are more people accessing health insurance, particularly Medicare and other types of insurance in the region, so therefore it takes longer to go see your doctor. And traffic congestion, many retirees are reporting hour-long drives on something that used to take them 15 minutes when the state wasn't as populated as it is now. So when you consider all of these issues, flood insurance, family not being there, the declining cost of property, it goes on and on and on, it's important to go into a Florida move with your eyes wide open. From the research we've done on this issue, it looks like retirees who retire to Florida spend between $15,000 and $22,000 more per year than they had originally budgeted, at least those that moved down there 5, 6, 7 years ago. This in turn has caused them to adjust their own retirement plans from adjusting how they travel and when they travel to gift giving to family members to having to seek part-time employment to make ends meet. By the way, this doesn't mean that Florida is a horrible place or that you shouldn't retire there. As I said, I love Florida, and who knows, you may see me there someday, but the important thing is to make sure that you go in with your eyes wide open. So how can you make Florida work, or at least potentially work? Well, my strongest advice here is to test it before you move there. There are a lot of communities and a lot of opportunities to live there for a year or two, so try before you buy, so to speak. This allows you to experience the pleasant winter season and maybe the not so pleasant summer season so that you can get a full assessment of what you're getting into. While there, you get a very clear picture of what it costs to eat out, what it costs to eat in, what the expenses are to run your life day to day, and you can talk to people and get quotes on what it would take to insure the property that you're renting, so to speak. So you get a real view of the things that you need to think about. Next, if you don't want to try before you buy, at least model in buffers into your expenses. Add $10,000 to $15,000 for insurance, over and above what you think it should be or what you thought it should be. Add $5,000 to $10,000 for HOA costs. Add 20% to your day-to-day expenses. Now, it's better to overshoot than undershoot when you get down to Florida and realize that you can't actually afford to live there. If family proximity is important to you, have an honest discussion with your family and tell them that part of the decision to move to Florida includes them being there. And also let them know that there's no pressure if they don't want to move there, but it's part of your decision-making process. Now, no one can stop them from changing their mind, but at least having an open, honest discussion with those family members that you're counting on being there increases the odds that that's actually going to happen the way that you want it to happen. And look beyond the traditional coastal towns to inland Florida. Moving inland just a little bit can save you 40 to 60% on insurance. Your house price can go down by 20 to 30% or more, depending on how inland you move, and a variety of other factors. Because if you want the Florida lifestyle, but you don't want the Florida expenses, this is a really good option for you. Also consider other locations that don't have the emerging risks, like Nevada, Arizona, North Carolina. These are 3 wonderful states that have similar benefits to Florida, but don't have some of the risks. And most importantly, maintain flexibility. Keep your northern residence for a while you move down to Florida. Build in a financial buffer. Buy a property down there if you're going to buy that you think can resell easily. Florida is still beautiful, and many people still enjoy moving and retiring to the Sunshine State. But go in with your eyes wide open, even if you're wearing sunglasses. Make your decision based on today's data, not outdated information and glossy marketing brochures. If you like this video, check out that video, Crisis Ahead, Why Your Home Insurance Might Double Soon. This is Jeff Schmidt, and I will see you in that video right there.
Holy Schmidt!